Hey everybody, this is Greg here. This video is going to teach you how to build this Raspberry Pi random rover robot. Basically what we have here is we have a powered speaker head for a Panda, and we have a distance sensor, an ultrasonic distance sensor mounted to a little board, breadboard there, along with the chassis with some motors and wheels. And there's a Raspberry Pi and a motor controller, an H-bridge motor controller. So, and then the little blue thing there is the battery. The battery powers the Raspberry Pi. There's another battery case down here with four AA batteries in it, and they power the engines. And then the powered speaker head has two AAA batteries in it. And basically what this does is the Raspberry Pi boots up, and then it starts looking to see if there is an object in front of it. Now right now I have the motor turned off, so the wheels aren't turning. If we turn the motor on, you would see this little robot just driving straight forward, full speed ahead, until it runs into an object. And when it does,
failure is not an option.
Simulate an object with my hand.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
And so you can hear that when when the robot runs into a wall, it says some quotes, some movie quotes, plays those over the powered speaker, and then it backs up and it turns and it goes full speed ahead again until it runs into another object.
I'm not the only one seeing this, right?
And then it stops, turns around, and takes off again. So that's what we're going to build today. So here's our parts list. Ignore the quantities there. This was set up for a certain group. But first of all, we have the CanaKit Raspberry Pi 2 Ultimate Starter Kit with Wi-Fi. So make sure you have this orange and blue box here from CanaKit.com. This is a good starter kit because it comes with everything you need, all programmed and configured, power supply, Raspberry Pi, case, everything. It also comes with a Wi-Fi extender and a circuit board and a GPIO breakout for the circuit board, which is what we'll use to teach some of the Raspberry Pi basics. So that's the CanaKit. So we need that. So let's check that off. Then we need the AutoKit Small Robot Car Chassis Kit. Right there. And that usually comes in a package that looks like this, along with the chassis. And we have all those pieces. So here's the chassis. It also comes with a bag, so there are the motors, some of the wheels, and some of the hardware mounting stuff. We're not going to use this battery holder because it's nice to have one with a switch on it. 2 wheels, right? So gotta have wheels, and I think that's pretty much it for the car kit. So we'll check that off. The next thing is a motor drive controller board, and that is going to look like this. The red board, it's got a big black heatsink on it, and this is the H-bridge motor controller board. So we've got that. The ultrasonic distance measuring module. That's in my bag of goodies here somewhere. Oh yeah, you should also have one of these. This is the battery holder for 4 AA's with an off-on switch. So make sure you have that. And what happened to... here it is. Here's the ultrasonic sensor. So should have one of those. Check that off. Mini portable charger, external battery pack for Raspberry Pi. So that's going to power the Raspberry Pi. And that should look something like this. And so you can charge it, and then you can use it. Plug this into the power on the Raspberry Pi and run the Raspberry Pi. Check. Yeah, we got the 2-wire lead on-off switch, black battery holder case with cover. Got that. I need a couple of, this is an 8-count package, but you just need 2 AA's for what we're going to do. And you need 4 AA's and 2 AA's. So I'll cover that. There's a VGA projector adapter. And that comes in a box that looks like this. So what you'll do is, if you only have a VGA monitor to work with, the Raspberry Pi has an HDMI video output. So you'll plug this into the Raspberry Pi, and you'll plug your monitor into this, and then you'll be able to program the Raspberry Pi. Okay, that's the adapter. There's a mini breadboard, and the mini breadboard goes on the little robot's head to hold the distance sensor, or you don't have to put it there. You can put it somewhere else. It's up to you. So we got that, and we need some resistors. So you need a couple different types of resistors, and we will have those available for you in kits, and so that's where this resistor kit comes from. There is jumper wires, so you'll need some jumper wires. Make sure you can get those from the instructor. Some nylon cable ties you'll need. And then you'll need one of these powered speakers. So in our case, we have an owl. And so you can see this does not have a battery compartment. So we need to power it from the USB powered. And then we can take and plug the audio cable from here to the Raspberry Pi, and that will give us all those fun voices. And then some mounting tape. Okay, so there's one thing that's not on here that should be on here, and that is a 3.5 millimeter audio cable to go from the Raspberry Pi to the powered speaker head. So we will have those available as well. Alright, this is the part where we're going to build the chassis, mount the motors, and get it ready to install the Raspberry Pi on the chassis. So the first thing, and this is kind of optional, is to peel the paper off from this chassis plate here. It kind of looks nicer if you take the paper off, so that's what we're going to do. So here we are peeling the paper off from this chassis. You can see it's nice clear plexiglass. There is one thing that bothers me about this part of it, and that's that when you start pulling this paper off, which can sometimes be a little troublesome, you can see as you're pulling this paper off, most likely you are generating a lot of static electricity. So I still have my wrist strap on, or another way to discharge yourself is to touch a grounded piece of metal. So you definitely want to do that before you pick up the Raspberry Pi after peeling this paper off, because that is generating a lot of static electricity. Alright, the paper's peeled off. Now we're going to open this bag of goodies. And we'll dump that out. So here's the little bag of nuts and bolts. And we'll dump that out. And basically these parts here are mounted to the motors. And so they just go right on the motor just like that. Now you can see there are a couple screw holes here. So these are going to be screwed, I believe it's these two holes here. So our motor is going to be mounted and screwed on basically like this, right? Those two screw holes there and that, and then we'll mount the wheel here and the encoder wheel there. Okay, and then we'll just do it with the opposite for the other motor. So just make sure you get these two screw holes on the bottom oriented correctly when you put these on your motors. Alright, so when we mount these, the best thing to do is put the screw head side against the plastic, through this hole, through the metal plate, and then we screw it down like this. Right, so there's one. There's the other. Then we tighten it down. Phillips head screwdriver. And these motors are going to vibrate quite a bit, so you want to make sure that you kind of get these tight. Sometimes it's best to grab onto that bolt on one side with a pair of pliers and tighten her up like that. Okay, good and tight. Not too tight or you might crack the plastic case, but just nice and tight. Okay, and so now we can take the motor, align the metal plate with the screw holes, and put in the screws. This time using the short screws. Okay, tighten those up. And voila, maybe a little bit of alignment here. And our motor is now mounted. And now we'll mount the other motor. Alright, now we have the two motors mounted. Looking good. Nice and firm. We can put the wheels on. They just basically slide right on. Just like that. Okay. There you go, all the way. Okay, our wheels are on. Now we just need to mount the little front wheel, and that goes up here. So you can see the screw holes are there already for it. So we're just going to take some more of these short little screws and bolts, screws and nuts, and attach the front wheel. Alrighty then. Okay, so now we're going to put some wires on our motor terminals. So you can see these two copper pins on each motor. And the kit has provided us with some wires to wire those up. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to put the red wire through the hole towards the bottom and the black wire through the hole near the top. Let's pull this out a little bit. Get the wire through there, and then bend the wire over so you have a good mechanical connection. Always the key to a good solder joint is a good mechanical connection. I'm going to use our soldering iron and solder, and we're just going to solder these on just like that and like that. Voila, we now have okay, now our motors are wired. Alright, now we're going to mount our battery box. You can see that I took the cover off. Basically the cover goes on and off pretty easily. It just slides together like that. It's got two little dimples there, and it just slides on and slides off like that. We're not going to mount this with screw holes because we don't really have a place to put screws in here. They'll get in the way of the batteries themselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this using double-sided tape that we have here. I'm just going to cut a piece of this off. About like that. Put it on here. We're going to leave, we're going to try to make this screw hole available. So let's mount this box something like this, kind of centered, but with the battery's screw hole available. So we're just going to pull off the tape and do that mounting. And now you can see the on-off switch is easily located. And try to center it. And that looks pretty good right there. So tape that down. There's our battery box. We're now going to mount the powered speaker head. And we'll just do the same thing. We'll use tape for that as well. Good old double-sided tape. And we want to mount the head far enough back so that we can still get to the little button there on the charger. So, do this. And peel off. Let's line this up here and put it down and push on it a little bit, get it nice and sticky. Okay, so it's starting to come together now. We have wheels, we have head, we have power. What's next? Alright, now we're going to put this little breadboard up here where we can mount the distance sensor. You don't have to put it up there. There are probably other places you could do it, so feel free to be creative. But this is the way we're going to do it here. So we can use this. It's pretty sticky. So let's mount this here, which is going to permit us to open our ultrasonic sensor. And then we're just going to take our ultrasonic sensor and mount it right there. Okay, so that's how that part of it should look. Alright, now we're going to get out our premium case for the Raspberry Pi. And we're going to pop the cover off. All we have to do is just pulls right off. And then the bottom piece here looks like this. You have to kind of push on it in order to get it to come off. And so we're going to push on that using our fingers through some of these holes and just pop it off. So now I have these three pieces, and basically your Raspberry Pi here has got your SD card slot, got your GPIO pins here. This is your HDMI port, your power port, audio port. These connectors are for camera and LCD display, and then we have an Ethernet jack and for you. So the way you put this in is you slide the back end under these tabs right here, and then it just sits right down just like that. Okay, and then we put it back in here. With all these pieces exposed, and we snap it together. And voila, nice little case. Now your Pi is protected, and be able to use it just like that. You can put the cover back on if you like. There's one thing that we have to do yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this H-bridge on top of the Raspberry Pi. Let it out of its little bag here, and so we're just going to mount this on top of the Raspberry Pi, pretty much like this. Okay, so we're just going to tape this thing on. Use that wonderful tape again. What did I do with my tape? Cut off another slice here. Let's put it right across this lettering here. And we'll set it down right on top here. Okay, so there's our H-bridge and our Raspberry Pi. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mount our Raspberry Pi right here on top of the battery case using wonderful double-sided tape. As such. Okay, didn't quite get that centered very well. Let's try again. There we go. Okay. So, I think all the hardware is mounted. Now it's time to do some wiring. Alright, let's do some wiring. Alright, first thing we're going to need are two resistors. They come in packs like this. We're going to need a 1K ohm resistor, which is brown, black, red. And we're going to need a single 2.2K resistor, red, red, red. And there's also a gold bar on there, which means it's 5%. So we're just going to take these out, and we're going to pull our 1K here. We're going to pull our 2K. Okay, so these resistors are going to wire up to this ultrasonic sensor. We're going to bend this one lead over so that we can put these resistors into this breadboard. But first we need to trim the leads. So we'll just trim the leads like this. And so our 2.2K, the red, 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 gold, that's going to go across the ground and echo pin on the ultrasonic transducer. So you can see I just plugged it into the printed board there. These columns again are electrical connections. So you can see the ground pin on the sensor is connected to one side of the resistor, and the echo pin on the sensor is connected to the other side of the resistor. Then our 1K is going to be in series with the echo signal. So we're going to jump over this notch and put the resistor in there. So now you can see we can wire up to this one end of the resistor to the Raspberry Pi. It's going to the echo signal, and it's also being pulled down by a 2.2K resistor. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to take our jumper wires. The ones you need are the ones with the female connector on one side and the male connector on the other. So we're going to peel off a red. So we're going to, basically I just peeled that off. These things just peel apart like this. So we're going to peel off the red one and the brown and black one, just to be consistent with coloring here. And we're going to plug our black wire into this ground connection here. We're going to plug brown into trigger, so that's this one, and then we'll plug red into VCC. And then let's strip off the white wire here. And we'll plug white into the connection to that series 1K resistor. So now you have all the wires that you need for your ultrasonic sensor, and we are going to wire those into the Pi GPIO pins. So we basically take our cover off, go in your CanaKit and find this card. So this card gives you a pinout of the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins. So the first thing we need to do is we need to wire the ultrasonic sensor to power and ground. It's a 5-volt device. So we're going to wire the black pin to pin 6 here and the red pin to pin 4. Okay, so here's the red pin. And you can see we are going to pin 4. And the black pin we are going to pin 6. So you just push those right on. Okay, make sure they're down. So now we have power connection. Next thing we have is the brown wire. Okay, so the brown wire is going to go on pin 16, that's GPIO 23, and the white wire is going to go on pin 18, that's GPIO 24. So the brown wire is going on pin 16, so there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and the white wire goes right next to it. Okay, so our sensor is now wired. Alright, now we're going to wire up the motor controller. The first thing we're going to start with are these signal pins right here. And so these are male pins. So we're going to grab the jumper wires that have female connector on both sides, because we're going to wire to these male pins to those male pins. So I'm going to pull out of this group here. It just so happens that I would like to use white, gray, violet, and blue. So we need four female to females. We're going to take this H-bridge motor controller and we're going to put these 4 connectors right on these 4 pins. So I'm going to go blue. Okay, so there we go. Blue, violet, gray, and white. Now, on the other side here, on the Raspberry Pi side, we're going to have to separate, do a little bit of separating here. We're going to separate the white and the gray a little bit. Blue is going to go to GPIO 27, that's pin 13, and violet is going to go to GPIO 22, that's pin 15. So we just count up here. Alright, we're counting up here, right? Okay, there's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. Okay, double check. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13 is blue, and 15 is violet. And then we're going to keep going down. 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29. So now gray is going to go on 29, which is GPIO 5, and white is going to go on 31, which is GPIO 6. Okay, so we're going to go to pin 29. So we ended there at 15. So we're at 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, and 29, and 31. Okay? So there you go. So now our forward and backward direction connections are made to the GPIOs. We still need to get power to this motor controller. So power again is going to come from the Raspberry Pi pins, at least the 5 volt and ground. So at this time you are now going to have to go back to the connectors. Here we go. Back to the connectors with male on one end, female on the other. Okay. And be nice if you can use red and black, but we already used that. So let's use some distinctive colors here. We'll go with green and yellow. Green will be ground, and yellow will be plus 5. Plus 5 volts. So now you can see we can get plus 5 volts off from pin 2. So we'll take yellow and put that there. And then we can get ground from pin 9 here. So let's go to pin 9 with the green wire. So that's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And make sure it's snug. So this is power to the motor controller. And if you look on the motor controller, you can see it's looking to get its power right here. Ground is the center pin, and plus 5 is on the right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to run this in here. Whoops. Use a little Phillips head screwdriver here, and we'll loosen this, and we'll run power in here and tighten it down. Pull on a little bit, make sure it's in there good, and there we go. Now we've connected 5 volt power to the motor controller. We're going to leave the ground loose for a second because we actually need to put 2 connections in there for ground. And the 2 connections is from the battery here. So as you can see, the battery comes in on this little wire here, and we have this for ground, and we need to connect those together in this slot right here. So this gets a little tricky, but you can do it. So we just plug them both in here. Skinny fingers works the best for this stuff. Unfortunately, I was not granted with skinny fingers. So we're going to do our best here. So I think I've got them both in there. We'll crank this down and do a little pull test, and we're good to go. We now have ground, and now we're going to take the other battery wire and put it here. Screw it down and hook it up. And there we go. So now we have our battery power coming in here. That will go out to the motors. and then we have the Pi 5-volt power and ground coming in here. That goes to the control circuitry and drives these GPI and senses these GPI open connections. Okay, I think our Pi is now wired. So we're going to put the cover back on, kind of bend these out through the edge here and put the cover back on. Okay, so the motor wire was a little bit short, so I loosened the Pi here, and we're going to just bring it up here where we can get these battery connections to it. So we're just going to wire this red wire for this motor up to out 1 and tighten it down, and the ground for motor. There we go. I think that's, is that in? Okay, pull test is good. Get the wires from the other side here. Pull test. Alright. Okay, so now we have our motor wires connected up. And we have the motor controller fully wired, and we have the sensor fully wired. We are ready to turn on the Pi and get her programmed. So let's do that next. Okay, we are going to put the batteries in. So basically pop this off. Install our batteries. And you can see we have light. Let's turn it off for the time being. Also, we need to plug in our speaker head. So in this case, the speaker head is powered by this USB plug here. So we're going to plug that in, and then we are going to plug that into the Raspberry Pi here. So the powered speaker head will get power from Raspberry Pi's USB port. And then we are going to, hopefully this is all charged up and ready to go. I'm going to take this, and then as soon as we plug that into the Raspberry Pi here, the Raspberry Pi's power port here, the Raspberry Pi is going to turn on. But yet, right now, we don't have it programmed. So the first thing we need to do is we need to plug in the memory chip. Okay, we are now ready to test our little robot. First of all, you should all have received a little 8 gigabyte scan disk memory. This is already pre-programmed with all the code necessary to run the robot. So we're going to take that and we're going to install it into the SD card slot on the Raspberry Pi. So the pins go up like this, and we slide it in there, and then it's got a little spring-loaded connection, so you can see now it's all the way in. To take it out, you just push it again, and you can see now it's out. So you need to make sure it's all the way in like that. Also, we need to hook up the audio, so we're going to plug an audio cable in there, and then into the Raspberry Pi here. And we're going to tuck the wires up in here so that they're not hanging out too much. And now we are ready to apply power to our robot. So we're going to kind of try to tuck some of this power cord away here too, so that it's not in the, doesn't get stuck in the tires or anything like that. And then we are going to plug this in here into this USB power port here. So right now you can see the important thing to do here is make sure that your battery, your motor battery switch is in the off position, because we don't want the motors to come on and start flying around while we're sitting here on the desktop. So this goes in with this kind of orientation. We plug that in. We get a red light there. It looks like we have power here and power there. Make sure your switch here is in the on position, and we need to give the Raspberry Pi a little bit of time to boot. You can't see its blinking lights in that black case. We'll give it a few minutes here to boot.
Good morning, Dr. Chandler. This is Hal. I'm ready for my first lesson.
And our robot is up and running. So now
Hasta la vista, baby.
I'm going to, running into obstacles there, I'm going to switch the motor to the motor, power to the motors. So it's switched on now, and you can see that the robot is running full speed ahead, just going until it's going to...
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I hate computers.
Not go in there.
And your robot is up and running. Now let's switch the motors on. Let's switch the motors off and turn off the Pi. And that basically should kill power to everything. Although it looks like this is still powered, we're going to turn this off so we don't use the battery. And I think there's a way to turn that off. There we go. So now let's plug it into the computer, and we'll take a look at how you can program it, download your own audio files to play, and maybe program it to do different things or add something to it. Okay, so now we're over by the monitor and keyboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to plug into this USB hub here, mainly just for power, and also it's connected to the keyboard and mouse. You don't need the hub. You could plug your keyboard and mouse into the USB ports here and then power it from the battery if you like. But I'm going to use this, so we're gonna plug in the USB keyboard mouse connection here. And also the other thing that we need to do is plug in the HDMI cable to the Raspberry Pi. And so you can use your Belkin adapter to get the HDMI to a VGA terminal if that's what you have. Okay, it's all plugged in here now, and you can see it's booting. Again, make sure the battery for the motor batteries are turned off, and you should be seeing a screen that looks like this, which is the Raspberry Pi booting. We have the powered speaker head still off, so I'm going to turn that on.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
And of course you can hear the robot saying stuff. So your robot automatically, the Pi automatically boots and starts running the Python program. So
I'm not the only one seeing this.
So you can see that it automatically booted into the Python program and runs the rover program. At the same time, it booted into its Windows system here. So you now have both running, which is okay. But if you want to test your program out and so on, you're going to have to stop the existing program that's running in here, and I'll show you how to do that. So here we are with the Raspberry Pi booted up. We're going to open File Explorer. We're going to go to Projects and Rover. And here's rover.py, so that's the rover Python, and we're going to open that by right-clicking and then left-clicking on Python 3, or Python 2, or whatever that was. We're going to put away this scripting interface, and here is your code, and we'll go through that in detail.